Hello everyone and welcome here to our webinar at Glasgow Caledonian University. My name is Branka Dimitrijevic and I will moderate today's webinar. I also direct the project Mainstreaming Innovation, and the project is funded by Scottish Government. This is a live event, and if there are any interruptions, for example a fire alarm or online interruptions, please try to reconnect to the webinar. The presentation will finish around 1:30, but you can start using chat facility to ask questions at any time during the webinar. We plan to close around 2 o'clock. The questions will be answered after the presentations, but if some cannot be answered during the webinar, then we will forward them to our speaker to answer later. Before we start with a presentation, I would like to say a few words about our project. Our project, Mainstreaming Innovation, supports collaboration between researchers at 9 Scottish universities and industry in developing and testing innovations for low-carbon infrastructures. That means for landscape and biodiversity as a natural infrastructure that can be used also as an instrument to mitigate climate change and to adapt to climate change. Also innovations for energy efficiency, energy generation from renewables, low carbon transport, waste and water. And of course for innovation communication technologies, or ICT, that can be used for monitoring and managing all these innovations. The links that we indicated on these slides between different types of innovations indicate that we look for synergies between different types of infrastructures to identify how we can optimize their performance, or how we can improve or achieve better, lower costs, and so on. So today's webinar is about solar photovoltaics in the Scottish education sector. And the speaker is Professor Tariq Muneer of School of Engineering and the Built Environment at Edinburgh Napier University. I would like now to welcome Tariq and to ask him to start with his presentation.
Thank you very much, Branka, for the introduction and for inviting me to make this presentation. So hello all viewers of this webinar. As Branka said, I'm going to talk about the experiences of Scottish higher education sector with respect to solar PV, the solar photovoltaic, or electricity generated from the sun. In particular, I'm going to cover the experience of 3 education institutions in Edinburgh. That is my own institution, Edinburgh Napier University, and our sister institution, Edinburgh University, and also the largest college now in Edinburgh we have, the Edinburgh College, who have installed a very large solar PV farm which can deliver at a peak capacity of 620 kilowatts. So I shall try to cover these 3 projects. That is the focus of this presentation. But in addition, of course, I'm going to give a survey of what's going on in UK and worldwide, and I'm also going to cover the economics of PV, how the cost of PV installation and PV modules has fallen, and to what extent it is now affordable. So let us start the presentation. As you can see, you have my business card in front of you. So if you need to contact me after this presentation, as Branka said, you can contact anytime during this presentation or shortly after the presentation up to 2 o'clock, and I shall try to answer your questions. But if you miss that opportunity, then you have my business card. You can send me an email later on, or indeed through Branka's good office. So if I move to the next slide, what I've tried to do here is present to you the renewable energy resource for the whole world. So as you can see, the light brown shading is solar resource, and by far that exceeds all other resources put together. So we have, for the rest of the basket, we have wind, we have geothermal, we have hydro, we have ocean power, and we have bioenergy. But solar, for almost all, well, for all countries, it is exceeding the remaining resources. For example, for if you take Africa, there is a total of 5,360 exajoule per year. An exajoule, as you know, is 1 followed by 18 zeros. So a very, very large amount of energy is available each year. And the bulk of that pie chart is shown to be solar. So why not tap into this resource? That is the object of this presentation. So from resource, we now move to see what is the problem we have with regard to climate change, and perhaps it is very apt to talk about climate change today, as there are 3 events taking place. But two events were somewhat sorrowful events. We had the very, very devastating storm in Philippines, and a lot of organizations, humanitarian organizations, are working, thankfully, to relieve the suffering of the people there in Philippines. Thousands of people have perished, and hundreds of thousands have lost their homes and so on. So we are seeing that year upon year the intensity of the storms is increasing. We also had yesterday reports of a devastating storm in US, which is again a very a sorrowful situation. But we also have a major conference on climate change taking place this week. So all these activities related to climate change, perhaps they can be quantified with the means of this presentation, which was prepared by Goddard's Institute for Space Studies. And what is shown here is the decadal change in the temperature of the planet. So as you can see, from 1951 to 61, the first decade, which is shown in this plot, up to the immediate past decade, 2001 to 2011, there's consistent shift towards the rise of the temperature. So the distribution is shifting on the right, and there's a red line there showing the lower limit of extreme heat, which is 3 Celsius. Most experts now agree that by 2100, the 2 Celsius increase will take place. But if it's more, then obviously there'll be more devastating effects like the one we have seen in the past week or so. Now, from that, if we move to a further quantifiable data, we are seeing here that the parts per million count for CO2 390 has been crossed now, according to this report from Independent on Sunday. And what the same article was saying is that the amount of money that will have to be spent to prevent the rise of more than 2 Celsius will be 1.25 trillion pounds. And if we don't spend that kind of money and arrest the climate change, then obviously you'll have to face the wrath of the storms. So it may be a wise decision to invest more and more into renewable resources, such as wind and solar. In Scotland, I'm happy to say a lot of activity has been seen on the wind potential, and in the south of England, a lot of activity has been seen on the installation of solar PV, so which are good moves. I'd like to take now the problem of the amount of energy used in UK. So this slide is showing the sectoral distribution. So the idea is to show the key sectors which use sizable quantities of energy. So of the total annual budget for energy use in UK, the domestic sector uses 20%. That's the primary energy consumption. and the road transport is used 18%. So that's nearly 2/5. The two sectors added together is 2/5 of the total. In road transport, most of the energy used for private transport, and a lot of that could be saved where people are making short trips or of less than 20 kilometers a day. That could be a lot of energy could be saved by means of electric cars, as we will discuss later on. On the domestic front, again, a lot of energy could be generated by wind or solar resource within UK, and thus the carbon impact could be reduced. This next slide is showing the electricity consumption. So the previous slide showed the total energy consumption, which includes heating of homes and buildings and so on. This one is showing the electricity consumption. So again, on the domestic front, nearly half of all the electricity used is used by in homes, and by rooftop PV, a significant amount could be saved. We see that rail transport is using only 2% of electricity. That's for electric trains. But if we were to shift to electric cars, that sector would rise. But then again, one could argue that wind and solar can provide electricity for sustainable transport. At this point, I'd like to show you the principal technologies that are used for generation of electricity. So we have three types of PV modules being shown here. Monocrystalline silicon with an efficiency about 16%. That is one of the major workhorses of the PV industry. The second one is polycrystalline modules, and their efficiency is typically about 13%. And then we have the older technology, the amorphous silicon, with an efficiency of around 8%. I put here an interesting web link which can give you more information if you care to go to seek more details. In this slide, I'm presenting the cumulative installation in terms of gigawatt of solar power, and we see here the leading countries are Italy, Spain, Germany, China, and US and Japan. And there has been an exponential rise, as you can see. In year 2000, almost with a nil base, we now are approaching 150 gigawatt, and there is discussion in the public forum that there will be this exponential increase will continue for quite a long time. This slide, I'm presenting the cost of PV modules, and as you can see from in the span of about roughly 35 years or so, we are seeing a price drop by a factor of 100. So what used to be $76.67 per watt, we are now dropping to 0.74, and now the latest prices are indicating a cost of even $0.6 per watt. So the cost has come down by a very, very big factor, and that has enabled very large scale installation in many countries that I showed. So there's further information about costs from one manufacturer which I have visited in Slovenia. This is the BSOL group, and they are quoting a price of 0.57 or 0.5 pound per watt, which coincides with the previous figure which I was showing you of $0.74 per watt. So there is a convergence from various sources, manufacturers, researchers, and the like, to show us that the price is coming to that kind of figure of about half a pound per watt or $0.75 per watt. Now I'll discuss very briefly some community, commercial and public PV projects. So one project in Scotland which has attracted considerable attention is the island of Egg. And Egg Electric is a community-owned company which provides electricity for all island residents from renewable resources. So in Egg, they have now got numerous sources which are complementing each other. So they have hydroelectric generators. The biggest hydro is 100 kilowatt, and then they got two smaller hydro projects of between 5 and 6 kilowatt each, and they have got a 24 kilowatt wind machine, wind turbine, and also they have 30 kilowatt of PV, which is the subject of this presentation. They also have 11 kilometer of cabling to connect the grid. One factory, one ice cream factory in Scotland, which has installed large wind turbines to help their business, is Mackey's in the south of Scotland. So I provided some information related to their work. The interesting point is the businesses like Mackey's, they're believing that 90% of the energy in the world will come from renewables in 20 to 30 years. That's what they seem to be saying. And finally, they're talking about storage potential. They're saying if storage potential is cracked, then there's no argument left for the installation on a large scale of renewable energy. Now I'm showing you the experience of Germany, which is one of the leading countries, if not the leading country. Germany's PV generation, this slide showing it has peaked 23.4 gigawatt on June 6th of this year. That is the production. And Germany has installed 35 gigawatt of cumulative PV capacity. That was on November 1st, it was reported. And it is expected that Germany will add between 3.5 and 4.5 gigawatt of new capacity in this new year. The graph at the bottom of the slide is interesting. The red curve is the demand on the grid, and the yellow curve is showing the solar output. So as you can see, the solar output is on sunny periods, it's about 1/3 of the demand, and the demand is above 70 gigawatt. So very sizable power is being produced by means of solar. On the top part of the slide, I'm showing Spain's experience with solar PV, and it says here that 4.3% of Spain's electricity demand was met in August this year. A complementary figure to what I showed you before is this one. This is the UK electricity grid demand, and it's showing that the peak for UK is just short of 40 gigawatt. So imagine what was done in Germany. It was in excess of 70 gigawatt, and a third of that was being met by solar means. The same could be repeated for UK, but UK is lagging behind Germany, but trying to catch up, as I shall show you later. I'm a member of CISER, which is a club of Scottish universities that promotes solar energy. And CISER has commissioned a report on how solar can be exploited, what are the pathways, and this report is available on the web. The title of the report is Optimat. So I'll show you some of the key messages coming from this report. So one key message is that solar radiation levels are typically between 85 and 90% of those in northern Germany. So if Germany can produce 1/3 of the demand, peak demand by solar means, there's no excuse why we cannot. because our solar radiation levels are between 85 and 90% of northern Germany. And then it further says, in fact, in some areas of Scotland, these levels are over 90%. I live in Edinburgh, and the east coast of Scotland is blessed with quite a few sunny days and some sunny intervals. And solar radiation levels could indeed go to as much as 900 watt per meter square, as I have measured in Aberdeen and Edinburgh. So the final message of this slide is more needs to be done to communicate this message to potential users and policy makers to debunk the myth that solar PV doesn't work in Scotland. So I hope I'm doing the job through this webinar. Furthermore, this Optimart report identifies that in terms of jobs, the industry has the potential to create between 119,000 and 660,000 jobs in UK by 2020, depending on the uptake of PV systems. And then it further says there are a number of potential opportunities around the PV value chain that could be exploited by Scottish companies within key sectors, including specialty chemicals, laser-based manufacturing equipment, electrical equipment manufacture, and engineering services to support installation and maintenance of systems. So just to finish off that discussion, I'm presenting from my own research the annual global irradiation levels in terms of kilowatt hour per meter square. So I'm showing for Edinburgh, for a 45-degree inclined plane facing south, the levels for London and Edinburgh are indeed very, very close to each other, as is also the figure for the vertical surface facing south. I now have a detailed price quotation from BSOL company, which is supporting the claim I made about £0.5 per watt of the module cost, and indeed the total system cost for a typical 5 kilowatt system, which could easily be installed on rooftops of most Scottish homes, or indeed in entire UK. The breakdown is given there in terms of percent, and the total system cost is £1.37 per peak watt for this quotation from BSOL company from Slovenia. I have obtained another quote for a large project from an American company, Advanced Solar Photonics, and that quotation is very similar to the BSOL quotation. So this one is £1.40 per peak watt. So if you bear those figures in mind, that'll give you an idea of how much would a typical system of say 5 kilowatt will cost. So the breakdown for the advanced solar photonics system is the PV modules cost would be about 45%, the inverters would be 12%, the labor in installation should not be more than 11%, and the balance of system about 32%. Now, where do the universities fit into all this? So I've tried to think through this. I think the role of universities could be split three ways. Mainly the university exists to serve the society. So number one would be seek, transmit and disseminate beneficial knowledge. And in this particular case, we are talking about solar PV. The number 2 point would be research, create and promote sustainable products and processes. And the third point is provide impartial advice on emerging technologies. Through this present project, Mainstream Innovation, and its previous version, the Kickstart project which Branka has left, we have advised a number of companies on potential solar installations, such as housing associations and other installers, on what would be the economic and energy and environmental analysis of PV systems. One example here is a system, a complete PV system or a rooftop system, which was designed by De Montfort University in Leicester. and the picture of that is shown here. Coming to Edinburgh, this is the picture of an installation which I installed at Napier University in April 2008. The exact date was 6th April. This was one of the largest systems at that point in time, but I'm happy to say that it has been now exceeded by other sister institutions. This system uses the BP Saturn modules with a acclaimed efficiency of 17% peak efficiency. It has 192 modules covering an area of 168 meters square and a peak power production of 15 kilowatt. So there are two views of the same PV facade shown here. The system has operated without any problems for 8.5 years. And as a matter of fact, later on I'm going to show you the energy produced by this system in the 8.5 years. The system is self-cleaning. The rain washes all the dirt and grime. There is no moving parts. It's a static technology. The inverter, there are 4 inverters behind the PV facade, which occupy a very small wall area. There is no floor area that they occupy. So there are 2 6 kilowatt inverters and there are 2 2 kilowatt inverters, making a total of 16 kilowatt handling capacity. You also see in front of this PV facade the white car. It's a Renault Zoe electric car. It's 100% electric. There's no fossil fuel engine, hence there are no emissions from its tailpipe. The car uses typically in the city, it will run 4 miles in 1 kilowatt hour of energy, and the cars such as these can easily be charged by the solar electricity produced on campus. If you wish to get more information about the performance of the PV facility and indeed the electric car, then I'm showing you some of the key articles. This article was based on actual measurement of energy delivered over a period of 3 years, and also all the energy audit for the embodied energy in the system was undertaken. This article was published by Institution Mechanical Engineers in London, and it could be obtained from them, or a synopsis could be obtained by sending email to me. Another article which has emerged from our experience of solar PV technology is this one. This one was published by the American Society for Civil Engineers, and it'll go into more details of modeling and its verification by means of measurement. A third article was produced by one of my PhD students who was Libyan, and he is hoping to start in Libya. Energy production from solar means is for the design of a 50 megawatt photovoltaic power plant for the desert in Libya. So just to complete the analysis of the PV facade at Napier University, as I said, the commissioning date was 6th of April 2005. I took a reading on October 6, 2013, just a few weeks back, because that was exactly 8.5 years, and the energy produced was 59.73 megawatt hour, which gives an annual average of just over 7 megawatt hour. The typical daily commuting return journey of 16 miles in Renault Zoe car, which I was showing you, required 2 kilowatt hour of energy. Thus, a dozen cars can easily be charged by solar PV facility. Another project which Napier has helped in installation, indeed also raising the finance, was the Shirati Hospital in Tanzania. One of my colleagues, Dr. Tom Grassi, he was approached by them, and then Dr. Grassi was able to raise the required sum of money through his efforts within Scotland, and then he traveled to Tanzania to install the system. So some of the details of the system are here. The system is 2.85 kilowatt, and it's grid tied. So there are some pictures of this project which are shown here. There is battery backup, so in the daytime there will be storage undertaken by the batteries, and then operations could be performed at night time. So approximately 12 kilowatt hour of storage capacity, or at 50% depth of discharge, can be achieved. Here's a picture of my colleague Dr. Tom Grassi and some of the staff at the Shirati Hospital here. And that's the commissioning of the project. The ceremony was performed there. Now I'm moving to a project which was undertaken at Edinburgh University. This is a 30 kilowatt facility, a highly visible project, as you can see here on the left hand side. You can see here these arrows which I'm showing you, the vertical facade, and also there are other elements of the modules. As I said, the peak capacity for this facade is 30 kilowatts, and this is the facade is on the William Rankin building, which is part of the King's building at Edinburgh University, which is the technical block. So these are some of the details of that project. The peak capacity is 26.35 kilowatt. It's grid connected on the demand side. The PV cells are crystalline silicon, multicrystalline silicon. If you remember, I showed them earlier on, the efficiency is around 13 or 14%. Once again, they use BP solar modules. The inverters are Sunny Boy. The total investment was €288,000, of which the module cost were €102,000, and the calculated PV yield was 17.8 megawatt hour. I have obtained data for almost 5.25 years, day-by-day data of the energy produced, and I have analyzed that data to show here the variation of day-by-day energy produced in this plot here. There is some problem because the modules go up to the knee height. There are some issues with the shading, as you can see here. There are tall trees in front of the installation, so on occasion there will be shading, and therefore the performance is somewhat below the design output. So once again, some shading issues are shown here. One of my students, a Spanish student who's working with me at the moment, he has produced a sun path diagram showing how much of the time the modules will be under shade. So here the blue area is the shaded part, and the non-shaded part would be above this blue part, and this kind of analysis can be done quite readily before the project is commissioned or undertaken, so that you may get an idea of the loss of PV energy due to shading. One at this point perhaps is a good idea to discuss what are the problems or demerits of PV technology. And one chief demerit is the shading. So if most of the modules presently for sale have single diodes, so the whole module there will be just one diode. and then when the modules are connected in series in a string, if one of the modules out of a in a whole string is shaded, there will be quite a considerable loss of power. And also, if one or more cells within a module are shaded, once again there will be quite a degradation of the performance, and there will be significant power loss, as is shown here. So what we see here is this curve represents the energy produced. The area under this curve is the energy produced by one module which has, say, 36 cells. If one of the cells was under shade and 35 were sunlit, the final output would be that much. So as you can see, the area under the red curve would be at best for 40% or a third of the area of a fully sunlit module. So you will have a very, very serious loss of energy. So this is one drawback of the PV technology. The manufacturers are reacting to it by producing, the modern modules will have multiple diodes. So the module is split into sub-modules. So if one part of the module is under shade, the rest of the module, sub-module will perform at peak performance. This is the picture of the front of the Edinburgh University project. So as you can see, quite tall trees which are on occasion obscuring the PV modules. So further picture of that. Now I'm moving to what is now at the moment the largest project of its kind in Scotland. That is the Edinburgh College's Solar Meadows Farm, as they're calling. This is on their Midlothian campus in Dalkeith. And this is the artist impression of the farm, and this is in real life now. And that's after the commissioning, which was just completed about 6 months ago or so. So some of the statistics for this project are shown here. The project has a peak design capacity of 627.2 kilowatt. The estimated generation is 568 megawatt hour per year. The equivalent payments emanating from the production of this renewable energy will be about 51,000 pounds. And then other items of interest are shown. The modules are pitched at 30-degree angle and they face due south. And the entire system is grid tied. Further information: the number of panels 2,560, and the estimated saving in CO2 is 293,000 kilogram per year. And the information claims that the farm will produce enough electricity for 170 homes. The project was completed in the record time, as you can see here, and the project was completed by SSE company, one of the largest energy companies. I have given a website here which will give you further information if you want to visit and claim and know more about this project. The project cost was 1.2 million pounds for, as I said, for over 600 kilowatt. That runs to slightly under £2 per watt. The key people are in this project are the principal herself, Mandy Exley, and her two colleagues. Ross Milligan is the head of Sustainable Automobile Division at Edinburgh College, and Michael Jeffrey is the head of Department of Engineering, and he's managing the Solar Meadows Farm. So further information, perhaps you have to write to them. This is a picture of Mandy Exley, who was the architect, I would say, of this project, a very enthusiastic lady. She has driven this project from the very start, and I invited her to give a message for this presentation, and this is her message, which could be read when you have downloaded this presentation. So, what is the summary of this project? The project was concluded on 1st March of this year. The total electricity generated by 4th September was 283 megawatt hour. So it is delivering as promised. The total project cost 1.4 million pounds, and the peak power capacity is 627 kilowatt. One of my students, he was undertaking an MSc program, MSc Renewable Energy program at Napier University. He has studied the solar meadows farm in great detail, and the thesis is the title of thesis is Analysis of Solar Modeling Techniques through Experiment on a 620 kilowatt solar power plant at Midlothian, Scotland. A copy of the thesis can be obtained by writing to our library people. So, just a brief summary of that work, the MSc work I was talking about. We have installed pyranometers to measure solar radiation on a horizontal plane as well as in the plane of the PV modules. We also measured heat loss from the back of the panels. We have measured the temperature of the panels, and we have also taken readings of the energy produced. So we could work out the efficiency, the cell temperature, and also to see how much energy is available in the plane of the modules. So all that work was carried out in a period of about 3.5 months. Some of the results are shown here. So the graph on the left hand side, this graph here, it shows the solar radiation in the plane of the collector. So there are two graphs there. One is the measured quantity, and there is also, as you can see here perhaps, the model. So we are comparing the estimate against the measurement, and as you can see, we have quite a good concordance. Another way to compare the two quantities, measured and computed quantity, is through the scatter plot, and once again you can see there is a good concordance, as is also evident by the statistics between the measured and the calculated quantities. So if I move further, this plot is showing the cell temperature calculation, which is a very important quantity in estimating the efficiency, which is the final object of the exercise, to find out at what efficiency will the panels deliver electricity. So the cell temperature, we have tested two different models and compared the results for those models. So here is the comparison of the calculated and measured cell temperature, and that was done by means of a time series plot, as you can see here, and also a scatter plot, and lastly also through the statistics, how well the computed compares with the measured. So that was done by these three different ways, and we found good concordance. Finally, I'd like to show you the work of a model university in US, Arizona State University, who have installed 20.8 megawatt of PV capacity on their campus, and they're claiming all of those are experimental facilities. So I'll take you a quick tour through the facility of Arizona State University. As you can see, they've got very, very large installation of PV modules on rooftop of their buildings, also in the farms, solar farms they have. The state of Arizona obviously blessed with solar energy, and they're using that to good effect in the production, use, and also study and to conduct research projects out of them. So, few more pictures of their rooftops and solar farms, and also on the solar carports they're calling. So very, very impressive indeed. So coming back to UK, I put some bullet points here. During the first 6 months of 2013, there were 106 new ground mount solar PV installations, which were in excess of 1 megawatt each. Within this total, 60 of the solar PV parks had installed capacity in excess of 5 megawatt. That's within UK, all this is happening. 8 had installed capacity of 10 megawatt and above. The largest solar PV installation to date in UK was the 34 megawatt solar project by Lark Energy at the former RAF airfield in Leicestershire. There is currently in excess of 1.5 gigawatt of ground-mounted solar parks in UK. Cumulative solar PV installed in UK at the end of June 2013 was 2.71 gigawatt, with 50% residential, 22% non-residential, and remaining 28% from ground-mounted PV systems. So further ahead, what's coming, I've given details of a 50 megawatt PV plant in UK, which is coming up. Banco Santander, it wishes to start another 32 megawatt solar farm. So details of that are provided here. So to sum up, the global PV installation will reach 41 gigawatt in 2014. The UK's world population share is less than 1%, and with the plans ahead, UK will have by end of next year 4.2 gigawatt of PV share of the world installation, which is more than 10%. So what I'm saying is, despite the lack of enough solar resource as compared to, say, the Middle East or southern Germany or southern Europe, UK is firing 10 times above its weight, is punching 10 times above its weight. So with the population share less than 1%, its PV installation will be more than 10%, which is good news. The transport emissions make up about 25% of Scotland's total emissions, and 2/3 of those come from road transport. So Scottish government moving quite seriously in that direction. The Scottish government targets for reducing emissions required from vehicles. It intends to decarbonize, largely decarbonize by 2050, and that will be through wholesale adoption of electric cars and vans. Now, this fits in very well with the large scale, the wind and solar power, because it will truly make the transport decarbonized or bring the carbon impact to very, very low figures. So in this respect, at Napier University, we have acquired our first electric car, a Renault Zoe, and we also have now 3 charging stations at each of the 3 principal campuses. I have done a quick analysis of the electric car, and I've done what we call 3E analysis: the energy, the economic, and the environmental analysis. So the energy used in the car is roughly 0.25 kilowatt hour per mile. The total economic cost, including the battery, servicing, vehicle depreciation cost, and the cost of electricity, it is coming at 43 pence per mile at the moment. The CO2 emissions from a fossil fuel electricity would be 114 gram per mile, but if the cars are charged by wind solar mix, that 114 will come down to 4. So quite a big drop. As I say, it will be nearly all decarbonized. Now, you must have seen there are plans in UK for a high-speed rail. The project is being called HS2, and the cost floated by some sources is that it would be about 73 billion pounds for this rail from London to the north of England. So I'm comparing that with a very large PV plant to exceed that of Germany, and that would be 70 gigawatt plant. It would also cost roughly the same amount as a rail project would cost. So there is some thought for action by policymakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tariq. And we already have some questions, so we can start with questions. Firdaus Muhammad Suki here at GCU asks, can you comment on the prospect of concentrating PV systems for domestic building?
The concentrating systems are great in sunny climates. So when you have a large proportion of the energy received from the sun is from the beam, from the direction of the sun, under clear skies, then they will be very, very good systems. But in UK, which has a predominantly a overcast or cloudy or partly cloudy kind of regime, in UK we get the total proportion of diffuse radiation is about 65%. So majority of the radiation is received from the sky or through thin clouds. So for such a location, the concentrated system, in my opinion, will not be a good idea. It will be a good idea for the Middle East or southern Spain, desert-like or semi-arid locations. It will be a good idea, but not in Northern Europe. It may not be a good idea.
Okay. We have few requests for links from your presentation, for example, Siti Hawa Abu Bakr, also from GCU. So a link in your presentation about the report by CISR and Optimat.
Sure.
This presentation will be available on our website.
Yeah, there is a GCU member of
CISR.
CISR. So they can contact.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Or if you write to Anne Marie Fuller, who's the officer in charge of CISR, she will gladly send the report.
Okay. Then we have a comment and question from Gordon MacDonald of Highland Health Board. He also wants a link to the Napier library for the thesis that you mentioned, but he comments that the numbers appear not to make good business sense, and I would like to delve into the detail. Making a showcase system like this work has huge ramifications for the rest of us. And another comment from him, cooling photovoltaics to gain higher yields. Would siting these horizontally a few centimeters above water on a floating system make sense? What would I be missing in this thought process?
So could you repeat that, please?
Again,
the water.
For example, for cooling photovoltaics to gain higher yields, would siting these horizontally a few centimeters above water on a floating system make sense?
The water and electricity plant don't naturally mix. But what he's saying is a good idea. There have been a number of research projects in what is now called PVT technology, photovoltaic thermal. So mixing the two. So water can indeed be under a very controlled situation, and also in passages rather than the entire module being submerged. There could be passages built and circulation of water achieved, where due care is taken of not having any short-circuiting effects. That could be undertaken. As I say, PVT is a complete area of research now, where either air is used to cool or water is used to cool, and then the water gains heat and is used for in the water heaters, that sort of preheating of water. So that's possible. As far as placing the modules on sea, in Japan they have ambitious plans to lay, because in Japan they do not have large areas of land available. So they are planning to, in the Bay of Osaka, they're planning to lay modules on floating platform on sea. So that project is also underway.
So Gordon's idea is
Yes.
being
Yeah.
researched right
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we are still waiting for some questions.
Regarding the question about the thesis, if this gentleman goes to the Napier University repository website, REPOSITORY, repository, they hold all the MSc and PhD thesis, MPhil, MSc and PhD thesis in PDF format, and the person, this if they're linked with the education institutions, they can visit that repository website and download. It's not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Well, it is remarkable how the price of photovoltaics has dropped. For example, since time when you installed photovoltaics on Edinburgh Napier University, how much cheaper are they now compared to the time? Can you compare that
Sure,
when
sure.
you installed them?
When we installed in 2008, 6th of April 2008, the project was commissioned. But obviously the project contract was awarded about 2 years before. Then we had planning approval and so many stages. So at that point, which is now almost 10 years ago, the cost was £7 per watt. And now it's dropped to £1.4 per watt. So it's a factor of 5.
5 times.
From 7 down to 1.4. That's a factor of 5.
Okay.
But
So-
over the 35 years, it dropped by a factor of 100.
What I'm trying to understand is, for example, you mentioned that 12 electric vehicles could be charged
Yes.
from the surface of
Yes.
photovoltaics at Edinburgh Napier University. So have you calculated by any chance how much is that per vehicle now? How much one would have to install, let's say, on a home
Sure.
to charge his own
Sure.
vehicle?
See, the 12 vehicles from 168 meter square. So talk about roughly 14 meter square
Okay.
on your roof. And your roof is more than 14 meter square, for sure.
And how much that would cost then?
It'll cost, as I said, about 1.4 pound per watt. So if you were to, you will need to charge about, as I said, for 16 miles, about 4 kilowatt hour a day of energy you need.
Yes.
So if you're traveling, say, typically 16 miles a day, which is most cars do that.
Yes.
So you need 4 kilowatt hour, which will mean you will need for the, I was saying how many meters square, about 14 meters
14
square.
square meters.
14 meters square will be,
Approximately.
yeah, no, I'm going to work out. So, a 3 kilowatt system, about 4,000 pounds.
4,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And you will have then your vehicle free to drive.
On most days,
On
not
most
every single
days.
day, because
Okay.
there could be in December, November, December, January periods of very, very
Yes.
dark clouds and so on. It'll work statistically over the year. So in some days in June, July, you'll have more than you require. So you'll sell it to the grid then.
Yes.
And December, November, you will buy it from the grid. So it will work like that.
Or could you store it as well?
You could store it, but the cost will go up then.
Yes.
Because the
So
cost is
we-
without the battery storage. But why do you store it? The grid is the storage.
Yes.
You dump it to the grid
Yeah.
and then buy from the grid. So the grid is your storage.
Another question, while we were talking about devastation in Philippines, about all these storms and so on, well, what about protection or resistance of photovoltaics to storms? How much they could be protected? For example, let's say this meadow of photovoltaics that is here in Edinburgh, how would you protect it from storms? Or
But the Meadows farm is at the ground level.
Yes.
So it is not in the very big height.
However,
so it is not susceptible to damage because it is very, very low in the height. But for rooftop system, there will be more threat of storm. So like anything else, it has to be secured very, very. Now in Edinburgh, as you know, the wind velocity can be very, very high, the wind gusts. But 8.5 years, we had no problems, you know.
Yes.
So from that experience, if you secure it very firmly in walls and roof structures, which are quite solid, you know,
Yes.
then I don't see a problem. In Edinburgh, we have it. We've got living proof. I mean,
Yes.
the Meadows farm is only 6 months old, but the Edinburgh farm is 8.5 years old. And
Yes,
so far, not a single module is blown off.
has been broken. That's excellent. You have mentioned how Germany leads in photovoltaics, but recently I have also read that or heard that their chemical industry, the big company BASF, were complaining about the price of electricity, very high price of electricity, and even threatening to move out of Germany if the price doesn't go down. And the reason is also that part of that price, of the cost of electricity, goes for funding renewables.
Yeah.
So that's also the same argument is used here in the United Kingdom by energy companies to say, well, to consumers, government should really remove the investment for renewables from the price of electricity. How do you believe this conflict could be solved?
No, I don't see why solar industry should be picked up. After all, the nuclear industry has been supported for many, many decades by public money. You know, so why do we single out solar or wind out of it?
Yes.
Also, any industry in its infancy, it is supported by public money to raise it off the ground, you know. I mean, this 73 billion pound HS2 project, where is that money going to come from?
Yes.
Not from private, not all from private sector. So the same argument applies to renewable energy technologies.
We do not have any more questions. What would you like to say as a final message at the end of this presentation regarding photovoltaics and their use, not only in education but in principle?
Well, what I would like to say is that any new technology needs nourishment, and solar has delivered. You know, it's not that it's not delivering. We saw the solar Meadows farm. Half of the energy promised in half year has been delivered. So it is performing. So there got to be more investment in these technologies, especially if the carbon figures I was showing from 114 gram per kilometer, 114 gram per mile is dropping to 4 gram per mile. There's a perfect economic sense, an environmental sense also. You know, so we need more investment in such technologies.
There are still more questions coming now from Keith Pierce of Pierce Design. Is the outside hardware insurable?
Sorry?
Is the outside hardware insurable?
I don't know about insurance because as far as I know, none of the universities insure their hardware because all the laboratories and the stuff, furniture and so on, universities don't take insurance. So I do not know. But obviously for private owners, there must be mechanism for that. I cannot see it not happening.
Yes.
Especially when people are renting the roofs from private owners, they must be insuring them.
Another question from Gordon MacDonald. No mention of solar film options. What are your views on this and the flexibility it seems to offer?
Solar film.
Yes.
Or guys, thin film and so on.
Yes.
I in the very early part of my lecture, I presented 3 technologies. The monocrystalline, polycrystalline and amorphous silicon. So I just restricted to them.
Yes.
I'm not going outside my domain of the main.
I see.
The trial technologies are those. So I've just restricted myself to that.
Okay. Okay, well, we do not have any more questions. I would like to thank you, Tariq, for your presentation. And before we finish our webinar, I would like to draw attention of our online viewers to forthcoming webinars. The next one is on 20th November, and it is about busting the myths of R&D tax credits and UK patent box. This webinar will be presented by Andrew Jones of G2 Innovation Group. This webinar should be of interest to all companies interested in collaboration in research with universities, because Andrew Jones will explain how they can obtain some relief for tax credits. And the next webinar is on 25th of November, entitled Finding Your Business. The presenters will be from Scottish Enterprise Smart Scotland Group, and their names are Michael Cannon, Director of R&D and Smart, and Wendy Hansen, Program Manager. They will explain what funding businesses can obtain from Scottish Enterprise for research and development. Another speaker who will be there is Dr. Ruth Carrigan, Director of R&D in Integrated Environmental Solutions, to talk about experience of IES in collaborating with Scottish Enterprise, who supported some of their projects. Thank you very much for watching. Please book places on our website for forthcoming webinars, and thank you for watching this webinar. Thanks.
There was a very late comment that came from Al-Fatira Maravalaki.
Thank you.